want to get this done so I can play Baldur's Gate. Hello and welcome back to Abigail's Bookshelf. It is already August. I know last month I was like, oh, that's not that big of a deal that it's already July, but it feels like a bigger deal that it's August. Let's pretend it's not August and go over everything that I read in July. In July, I read 4 books, and overall, it was just like a really mid-month. I didn't read anything really bad. I didn't read anything really great. Unfortunately, it was just a total middle-of-the-road situation, which is fine, but it's more fun to read really good stuff or really bad stuff. I can't lie to you. So let's just hop in. Let's just start going over everything that I read in July, starting with book 1, A Mouthful of Dust, which is the 6th entry of the Singing Hills cycle by Nevo. And unfortunately, this one was a really, not a big disappointment. It was disappointing to me. I've been reading these books for ages, I feel like. And there have been some installments in the series that are really, really good. Unfortunately, I feel like the last couple just have not quite reached potential. I don't know. They just have not been as good as the others, which is a really big bummer. I think that's natural, especially in a series that is ongoing and that is already on book 6. Like, there are going to be some installments that are just not as memorable or as good as ones before. That's why I like to watch TV shows that have like a planned end date. Of course, that doesn't always work. See Stranger Things. I like when a creator is like, it's going to be this many and that's it, because that makes me feel more confident that they have a whole entire plan and they're not going to be just kind of like throwing shit together on the fly. And I find that the longer things go, the worse they get because of that kind of just throwing shit at the wall. And I feel like this one, A Mouthful of Dust, just it didn't feel as coherent or as heartfelt as some of the last couple of installments, especially as like I think the first 3 installments are the best, and the others have been okay, but just nothing has really been as well done as those first 3, which is kind of surprising because you would think it would be something that would get better with time. But unfortunately, this one is just, I don't know if it was because this one takes place when Cleric G is very young and very early into their clerichood. It's not really priesthood. They're younger into their story, and so they don't have, I noticed that they didn't have that sort of like level-headedness that they have in the other installments because they've built on each other. The character development felt backwards maybe, which is like, it takes place before, so obviously that has to happen, but it just was not satisfying to me. And it was not super effective as a story. I didn't see the sort of seeds of who Cleric G would become. In fact, in a lot of ways, I feel like the cleric felt very, like it didn't feel like Cleric G to some extent, which was really weird and disappointing. But yeah, unfortunately, this one did not hit the way I was hoping it would hit. The ending was not super satisfying, and it didn't feel as inventive, maybe, as some of the mythology that Vose used in the other installments. Just a bummer. Just a bummer. Didn't quite hit. I gave it a 3 out of 5. It was there and I read it. So that's kind of, that's the review. So next up, unfortunately, we have another big disappointment. I've been on hold at the library for several months waiting for The Ending Writes Itself by Evelyn Clark, aka Kat Clark, and V.E. Schwab. This book is a team effort by Kat and V.E. to write an Agatha Christie style murder mystery based off of And Then There Were None, which I will say is one of my all-time favorite stories. Unfortunately, that was a really high bar. And I've been trying to think about if it's me that has the high expectations that were let down or if the book genuinely was a letdown. And I can't really come to a conclusion, if I'm gonna be honest with you. For one thing, I have really high expectations for V.E. Schwab. I think she is a very smart creator. I really enjoy everything that she has to say about the craft and about art. I love the Vicious series. I love the Threads of Magic series. I love the Monsters of Verity series. But I would say since Addie LaRue, I've had a really hard time enjoying the Schwab books. And I don't know if that is related to her rise in fame and the inevitable pressure of for her to write to a much bigger audience and to be able to maybe take some risks that she wouldn't have taken without this much popularity. And also just like, you know, there's an entirely new set of eyes on her, and I think that's not been great for my enjoyment of her work. I was famously very let down by Bury Our Bones. I'm not the biggest fan of Addie LaRue. The ending rights itself was equally not satisfying to me. I hate saying this. I hate being negative about V.E. Schwab because I love V.E. Schwab to death. Like, she's one of my favorite people on the planet. But I just have not been enjoying her stuff recently. I think probably a combination of those factors is maybe leading to that unfortunate conclusion. I'm very nervous about Victorious coming out later this year because I've been reading that series since 2015, and I'm very nervous that the same things that I don't like about her current works are going to make me not enjoy the conclusion of that series, which would be a huge fucking bummer. Selfishly, I want to love that book. I'm nervous. I'm nervous. To me, I think the ending rights itself was written to be a movie. I think they did start writing it as a screenplay, and I wish it would have stayed as a screenplay. It just really lacked coherence to me. The storytelling of it was not super well done. The pacing was very strange. I think it was like 60% in before someone died, and then it was just like dominoes, and it felt very awkward to me as I was reading it. And after I finished, I was thinking about kind of all of the clues that were set up that I felt like weren't really followed up on. There were lines of suspicion and hypothesis that were not followed up on. The reveal of the killer was extremely unsatisfying because it felt like it totally came out of left field. When they were revealed, they became like kind of cartoonishly evil. It just didn't, I don't know. It didn't work for me. And I think on top of that, the stakes of the murder mystery didn't really make sense. Like, I want to be a writer. I would love to be a writer more than anything else in the world. Would I kill for it? No. Like, you know, I think in something like And Then There Were None, the motivation of the killer was extremely compelling and extremely clear. And once you figure out the lines of connection between these people, that makes it even more compelling. I don't think that our cast had very interesting lines of connection between each other. I don't understand why the final girl was final girled. It just was not effective mystery to me. Like, it felt like it didn't adhere to any of the rules of mystery. And I'm not gonna say that I read a ton of mystery, but I've read the classics, so like I think I have kind of an idea. I didn't feel like those rules were broken well or for very good reason. So it was a really disappointing read, and I was not satisfied with it pretty much at all. None of the characters were particularly interesting or likable, so it was just really a flop to me, which is a bummer because I was looking forward to it. I had a little mystery itch, but unfortunately, the ending did not write itself. The ending didn't even make sense. Next up, the third book that I read in July is The Emperor and the Endless Palace by Justinian Huang, which is a fantasy, and to my horror, a reincarnation fantasy. I hate reincarnation fantasies. The only thing I hate as much in reincarnation fantasy is mortal fantasy. I just don't fuck with it. I really do not. It is frustrating to me. I don't like amnesia tropes. So obviously I'm not going to be a huge fan of a reincarnation trope. I think this one also just like kind of missed the mark on a lot of stuff. I would call it probably a romantasy because the romance is one of the central aspects of the story. However, aside from sexual tension, I didn't really feel much romance. I actually don't know that the characters spent much time together at all unless they were fucking, so that's, you know, that's a thing for me. The romance was not super effective to me. The present day felt extremely at odds with the other two stories. There's three lines. The sort of ancient storyline where the story gets kind of set up, and then there's like a middle story, and then there's the present day story. I really liked the oldest story. I liked the kind of ancient Chinese court intrigue, the kind of drama of that. I liked that aspect of the story a lot. The middle one was kind of like hit or miss for me. I think it mostly just confused me a lot, and so that made it very hard for me to be super invested in that story. And then the present day just felt like totally disconnected from everything else going on. Present day was just kind of going to parties, and there was like a random art heist that was not resolved. So I felt like the present day stories were a completely different book from the other two. And I will say I was getting extremely frustrated up until maybe 60 or 70% of the way through, because I was getting very frustrated with how the characters were developing and I didn't feel like it made sense. And then something is revealed that makes it make sense, but also if it made sense, wouldn't I have caught on earlier? I don't know, because the way I feel about plot twists is I should be able to see them coming and I should be able to trace back where they came from and where I missed stuff. There was not that moment that I could go back and say, oh, this is the spot where that happened. And I think because the two male characters were very intertwined in a way that they became very conflated in my mind to be kind of like the same person. And so it was very hard for me to accept the plot twist that happens. And I won't reveal it in case you want to read it. I don't want to do spoiler. I wanted a little bit more. And I know that's asking a lot of a romantasy, but I just wanted a little bit more. It was all right. If you're looking for a different kind of romantasy or you're trying to read queer romantasy, give it a shot. It's not a bad book by any means. I just think it's a debut. And it was very clearly the first book like this person has ever written, which is fine, but I just think it was a little ambitious for what the writer was able to achieve. And so it kind of fell flat on a lot of fronts for me, which led to it not rating super highly for me, which is a bummer, but so it goes. Next up is my nonfiction pick for July. I read A Hope in the Dark by Rebecca Solnit. This was a very challenging read. I want to start there. So this is a book written in, I want to say 2004, I think maybe is when it was first published. So it was written 2003, 2002, 2001, that kind of time frame. I'm saying that first because this is a book where the author is arguing that there are examples of political revolution and political change that is very positive and that can and should inspire hope in us even when things seem very hard and seem very dark. Great premise, something we need right now. However, it was extremely challenging to hear that take when kind of the worst thing going on was Bush. And not to say that his crime of waging war upon the Iraqi people over oil is something we should sweep under the rug. However, I don't think Solnit could have predicted the levels of fascism that we would be sinking into just 22 years removed from when she was writing this book. It was very challenging to accept the premise of the book when things have gotten so much darker than she could have anticipated. I think, however, if anything, that should make the premise of her book even more poignant and necessary, because as she says in the book many times, there is no end to evil. Evil will never stop. There will never be an end to people doing bad things for self-interest or to intentionally harm other people. And I think the past 10 years that's been very much, I think, the mindset that a lot of Americans have come to believe is fact. And I think that's led to much more despair than Solnit could have anticipated. And I want to also clarify that she's talking about a very particular time in history. She's not going all the way back to, how did people find hope during the Holocaust? How did people find hope during all these other historic events? She was talking very specifically about her current historical period, which was the turn of the millennium. Unfortunately, the stuff that she found hope in, not necessarily stuff that's strong enough. We need much stronger dosages of hope these days. So I think that while sometimes I was reading some of the chapters and getting very saddened and very overwhelmed with despair and feeling like, God, I wish we could go back to that being like, I wish we could go back to 2004 and try again. I wish that that was the world we were living in. But I also think that it's also it's a lesson that we all need right now. And she made a lot of very great quotes about the dangers of despair and the comfort of despair. Always relied on her premise that there is hope in the world, and you have to go look for it, because it's not in the power's best interest for you to see it, but it is out there, and people are making change, and people are making the world a better place. And the kind of concept of activism is not to reach, it's not a goal. We're not trying to reach a utopian future. We are trying to make life bearable every single day. There are a lot of really great moments in there to kind of reinforce that for the modern age. It's gonna be something we all have to work on a little bit every day. It's not something that, we can just wake up and feel, and some days will be easier than others and some days will be harder than others. But I think it was a good reminder of that, because right now it's very, very easy to slip into despair. It's very, very easy to kind of want to roll over and say this world is horrible and there's nothing we can do about it. But there are things that we can do about it, and there are people doing things about it. If all you can do every day is find a little bit of hope, that's enough. I really enjoyed it. It was a tough read. But not because of its content, but just because of the dissonance between then and now. I think the churn of history felt very strong, and the scale of time felt very short and very far at the same time. That in that way it was challenging, but really, really great read. I highly recommend that you check it out, especially if you're looking for a little bit of hope in the dark. Last book I read in July is Love in the Big City by Sang-Young Park, which I'm now realizing was, I think, an autobiographical fiction. An autobiographical novel, like when it's like loosely based on real events, but also is like fiction. Does that make sense? I'm just now realizing that. I think that's what this was, because I never connected his name. It's the same name of the character in the book, and it never connected to me that was going on until right now. Okay, so this is a queer fiction story about a young man in Korea. It came out in 2019, was longlisted, I believe, for the Booker Prize. I'm not sure if it won. I don't think it did, but it was in consideration. So this book follows a young man through his very early 20s up until, I want to say, maybe his mid or early 30s. I'm not sure exactly how old he is when the book closes. It's following his exploits and the wonders of being young and queer. It was all right. It's not a book for me, I think. So if anything, that's kind of the disconnect for me in fully enjoying it. There were some moments in it that were extremely poignant and very moving, but unfortunately, on the whole, I found our main character of Young to be, I hesitate to use the word unlikable, because I think that's become a filler word, and I think that also, I don't mean it in the way that I think people online mean it. To me, I don't need characters to be likable in particular. I like characters to be interesting. They don't have to be people I would ever hang out with. They don't have to be people that I agree with. They just have to be people that I find some sort of compassion with, some sort of understanding, some sort of investment in their development. Doesn't have to be good, can be evil as hell. That's fine, as long as it's a compelling character. Young was very compelling at certain moments, and this may be because this is an autobiographical novel. The character development was not linear to me, and it didn't come around to something. And, in traditional Western storytelling, we use kind of like the 3-act plot structure. This is the normal world, this is the stuff that changes the normal world, and then this is who comes out at the other side of it. I know in Eastern traditions that's not necessarily the case. They kind of have their own structures for storytelling. But because that's my frame of reference, that's what I look for and that's what I like. And so I found the fact that Young could identify his issues and not do anything about them or he doesn't necessarily have to change for the good, right? Like, it would be fine if he backslid, or if he, like in She Who Became the Sun, the character of Oh-young commits to the wrong ideas and follows them through, right? So even though that's not, he doesn't have a happy ending, and he never really achieved self-actualization, there is movement. There's something happening in his storyline, in his internal storyline. I didn't feel that way with Young. I feel like Young, he's kind of one of those people that like could tell you everything that's wrong with him, but refuses to do anything about it and just kind of stays the same. And that's very frustrating to me as a reader, to be invested in someone's story if they're not willing to commit to something. That stories are founded on action and making choices. And now that I'm realizing this is probably an autobiographical novel, much like the one Young was writing in the book, that, you know, people in real life don't behave like that, right? Like, I could identify 17 of my issues and I've probably never done anything to change half of them. That's fine. That's how normal, like, that's how real people function in the world. But in a story, you want that kind of satisfaction. You want that closure. You want that progression and change. And that wasn't happening for me with Young. And that's why I don't read memoirs. That's why I don't like memoirs. I don't like biographies. I struggled a lot with keeping interest in Young because he had these moments of clarity where he was understanding what he was doing and he would think something very profound. And then the next section, he just kind of goes back to his old ways. Another thing similarly is the story was kind of structured kind of like that, where there were these kind of long chapters of often they were centered around a certain person in Young's life, and it was kind of the breadth of the relationship with that person from beginning to end. It was kind of like whiplash to bounce back between, it didn't follow Young's life, it followed the lifespan of the people in his life, if that makes sense. Like, the first chapter starts off with like meeting his best friend, everything that happens in the end, and then they're sort of falling apart of their relationship. The next one is a lover meeting, you know, and so that in that way, Young's character, it felt very whiplash, because he would reach a certain point of awareness, and then the next chapter we'd go all the way back to the beginning. And so that was kind of frustrating for me as a reader, because I wanted that kind of linear, we're learning and then we're growing on this part. And he was never actually really able to grow because he just kept going back to reverting back. And that's because he was going back in time, and that makes sense. But like, there just wasn't that kind of linear character growth that helped me stay really invested in his story. And the way he treated people was really foul. I don't know. He was not somebody that I found myself very interested in. And so I really struggled with connecting to his story very much. But there you go. A completely different narrative style, which I completely am acknowledging and understand. But for me, I struggled with the way that the story was set up. That's because I really like character-driven stuff. And because Young was the narrator, I wanted him to develop, and he really wasn't. In a lot of the ways, a lot of people he was with also were not developing. So not my favorite. Not my favorite. It was fine. I think it probably mentioned Kylie Minogue more than any document in the world needs to mention Kylie Minogue. It's a modern book from someone who's very dialed into pop culture and the present moment. So not so much for me. Maybe for you, but not for me. So that is everything that I read in July. 5 books. So we're a little bit ahead of schedule again. Moving into August, the busiest and hottest part of the year. I have a couple of things that I'm kind of working through a little bit more slowly, and I hope I read something I really like next month. I want to get on here and tell you guys I read something great. I also wouldn't mind getting on here and telling you I read something really horrible and being able to rant about it for a little while. But that's how July went. Hoping August will turn out a little bit better. But that's all for me today. I'll see you in the next one. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll give you the cat tax. Cat tax, he's cranky cause I woke him up. Oh, the things you endure, sweet, sweet boy. The things you endure. Look at you, you're so handsome. Look at you, you're so handsome. He's been naughty today. He's been naughty today. He can't help it. He's a baby. I'll be right back.